It feels as if everything is coming this way, and I don't have to do much assertion. I don't have to act on things very much. It's just a kind of open-armed response, which again, you know, that can sound like some terrible new agey stuff, but the poem does that. Just everything sort of forms itself toward the poem. That doesn't mean a poem results on the page. That doesn't mean that at all. If I write 10 poems, one, if I'm lucky, is probably going to be effective. But all 10 were worth doing. All 10 were worth doing. And then when I'm not writing, I'm just, you know, maybe I'm just there. I'm just daydreaming or noticing. I'm just always noticing something. You really have to trust. Just trust something will be there. You may want the poem to go over here, but the poem wants to go over here, and you need to go over there and trust the poem. So I think that's pretty much it. You know, I started, I'm a poet, and I end up with, I'm a poem. Or a poem is me.
It seems to me that before I was a journalist and was, you know, working with farmers and ranchers, that was an art. You know, you had your passion in it. So how do you change? I think it's just that you're ever evolving, you're ever growing, and hopefully you're putting these, you're adding these experiences into you, so that when you do sit down and do a new form of art, maybe writing or clay or what have it, it all just kind of builds into that experience. I mean, certainly when I look at my book or my writing of any kind, it's an amalgamation of geology, of relationships, and of conflict resolution, and all of the things that I've done in the past, just put into the form of words for that one space and time.
It brings to mind when you're describing your process, American poet William Stafford, his writing process was to follow a thread. He spoke of it as being a golden thread or golden string. He followed that into the poem. But how he held the string was critical. You had to hold it with a supple hand because it's so easy to break the thread. He said, if an impatient person can't write a poem, he said, they don't come to impatient people. And he made a distinction between believing what you thought ought to happen and what was already trying to happen naturally. And that's been a really important distinction for me. As a pianist, I'm always being with sort of where's the energy drawing me naturally. If I feel I'm forcing it, then my sense is I'm not reading the energy of what's already there. So then it's a matter of just kind of pulling back a bit, not resisting, but just kind of pulling back and just kind of waiting and kind of seeing what's really wanting to come from the inside out as different from what I'm trying to pull from the outside in that I think ought to be happening. And that way I can kind of stay much more inside the process as he could in finding a poem. And he'd get a poem every day, and he'd always get a marvelous poem. But it was really by honoring the process of always being at that blank page every morning and just being with what was wanting to happen naturally.